If you're a designer, having your own space to create in can be a really important part of the creative process. In this video, I'm going to share some of my thoughts around why it's so important to have your own space, some of the things you should think about in creating that space, and how it can actually help you to become a better designer. Now, we've all seen those movies where there's the artist and they've got this amazing loft space studio in New York, and it's got these amazing views of the city and canvases and paint scattered all over the place. And whilst that'd be nice, for most of us, that's not really going to be our reality. And even if you're just starting out, and regardless of whether you're lucky enough to have your own studio space, or maybe you're just trying to steal a corner in the bedroom or the garage, I've seen how it's not only possible, but actually really important to have your own space to create in, and how this can actually help you to function better, be more productive, and inspire you to be more creative. When I started out as a designer, I worked in larger design firms. So they had their big offices and you had your own desk space. And I kind of thought of design as being something that I just did at work, and home was home, and the two didn't really cross over. And that's how I worked for the first 10 years of my career. About 15 years ago, I started my own design firm, and it was the classic sort of sole trader startup model, the laptop at the kitchen table. Co-working spaces weren't really a thing then, or not like they are now. And coming from larger sort of design firms, which had bigger offices and more structured types of setups, the more mobile type of arrangement really appealed to me. The idea that you could have a laptop and a sketch pad and basically work from anywhere. For the first couple of years, I really liked working this way. I think it's because it was the first time that my work life and my home life had become completely blurred. But over time, I ended up working out that designing from your kitchen table isn't actually the best way to design. It's not overly functional and productive, it's full of distractions, and it's usually not overly inspiring. And as your business grows and you get staff and all the things that come with that, there's obviously the pressure or the natural progression towards getting an office space, and that's a separate thing. But over time, I've also come full circle, and I think that it's really important, if you can, to still have your own space to create in at home. And even if it's just stealing the corner of your bedroom or garage, having a space that you can go to and an escape, a place where you can think and experiment and make things, can really help you to become a better designer. The space that you see behind me is the studio I've set up for myself at home. It's nothing fancy, it's actually the corner of our garage, but it's a space that I love to go to, and I spend a lot of time designing, making things, filming, and just experimenting. I wanted to share some of the things that I thought about and learned in the process of setting up this space, to talk to you about how I think it actually helps me to be a better designer. And hopefully this will provide you with some ideas and inspiration if you're thinking of setting up your own studio space at home. If you spend 5 minutes going through YouTube or Pinterest or any of those sort of things, you can find endless photos and videos on home studio tours, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. But most of what I've seen seems to focus on the aesthetics and gadgets and the latest products, like shiny monitors and funky desk setups and all those sort of things. I thought I'd do something a bit different and focus more on some of the principles that you can think about when setting up your own studio, regardless of technology or style or aesthetics. These are the things that have changed the way that I work and actually helped me to become a better designer. So I'm going to focus on 3 key principles for you to think about when designing your own studio. How to create a space that is more functional, a space that actually makes you more creative, and a space that actually inspires you, that you want to spend time in, and that actually makes you want to go design things. The first and most obvious point is how to make the space functional for you. Or more to the point, how do you make the space work so that you function better? I think one of the most common mistakes is that people start by scrolling through videos and photos and all those sort of things and trying to work out what they want the space to look like. To me, the most important starting point is to honestly ask yourself, what is the space actually for? What am I going to be doing in it? What are the key tasks? What do I have to fit in there? And trying to organise those things first. For me, my days are usually split between 2 main tasks. The first one I kind of think of as the desktop. That's being in front of the computer, designing, drawing, video meetings, admin, those sort of things. And the second is kind of the making, where I'm sketching, I'm playing, I'm making models, I'm flicking through photos and those sort of things, and I deliberately want to be away from the computer. So when it came to laying out my studio space, also I didn't have a huge amount of space to play with, I wanted to organise it based around having 2 basic areas that accommodated these 2 basic functions. I then organise the storage spaces and my tools and bits and pieces that I use based on how I move between these spaces and work. And that's really helped the way that I function and improve my design flow throughout the day. I've obviously made changes and added new things along the way, like a sit-to-stand desk, better lighting, improved storage systems, but getting these 2 basic elements right, the layout from the start, has probably been the biggest thing that's helped me function better as a designer. So if you're designing your own studio space, I'd really encourage you, as the first question that you ask yourself, how am I actually going to use this space day to day? And how can I lay it out to help me function better in whatever it is that I want to do? And the second principle was how to create a space that would actually help me to be more creative. Now, I know that probably sounds a bit vague, but I've learned, at least for me, that my creativity is really improved when I can easily move between different tasks, from designing, making and thinking, and that ability to play and experiment as different ideas come about. Setting things up, making things, cleaning things up, packing them away, setting up new things just to move between tasks. Sometimes it'd be working on the computer and then trying to draw and then laying out books and photos and then packing it up and doing a video meeting and then packing it all up again, laying it out. Just the process of trying to shift between those things, I'd always end up either in a complete mess or just that was enough of a barrier that I just wouldn't shift between those tasks. And I found that that ended up really impacting on my creativity. So I knew, for me, a priority was to set the studio up in a way that would remove, or at least reduce, the friction of moving between these different tasks, to allow me to shift between designing and making and thinking as seamlessly as possible. To give you an example of this, a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to start documenting my design process, both for client projects, but also to start experimenting with making videos like this. I found the process of setting up for the filming, the lights, the mics, the cameras and all that sort of stuff, took a lot of time, and it was enough of a barrier that I often didn't end up doing it, or it would really interrupt the flow of the design and the work that I was actually meant to be working on. Whilst I really enjoyed the thinking and the creativity of the process, I found what was involved in setting things up and then pulling them back down again was enough of a barrier that I didn't really end up doing much of it. More recently, I've made some changes around the studio and added some simple things like lighting in the right place and camera mounts that I can easily click things into, which has just really made it much more seamless, and I can incorporate it within my design flow and add that extra part into my creative process without it actually impacting on what I'm working on. Whilst that's obviously just one example, it shows how the layout of your studio can actually help you to move between different tasks, help you to experiment more and to actually be more creative. And the third principle I'd really encourage you to think about is how to create a space that actually inspires you, that you really enjoy spending time in, and that makes you want to go design things. And what that means for everyone is obviously different depending on what's important to them. But for me, I take inspiration from places that I actually like spending time in. My local cafe, restaurants, bars, galleries, even libraries. And when I do find a place that I like, I just stop and ask myself why. And then I try to incorporate some of those elements back into my own studio. For me, it came down to some pretty simple things and ideas. It was about creating a space that felt more like a living room than an office, that had nice music and lighting and cutting out noise and distractions, and even surrounding myself with greenery and things that I've collected along the way, and photos of designs and places that inspire me. It's all of those things that combine to create a space that I actually enjoy spending time in, that inspires me and makes me want to go design things. I've got a wall in my studio that I've made where I can hang sketches from projects that I'm working on, or photos that I've taken, or images of designs and places that inspire me. For me, it's a continual reminder. It's kind of a way that I can surround myself with design ideas and inspiration, but it's also part of my design process. So rather than just trying to create a space that looks creative, the way the space actually looks is the result of the creative process. So rather than trying to copy another designer's space or follow a particular style or aesthetic, make the space that you create in an expression of your own creativity, of what you're working on, what you value, and what inspires you. If you're in the process of making your own studio space, hopefully this video has given you some ideas and will help you to create a space that is more functional, that makes you more creative, and actually inspires you to go design things. And if you're watching this video and you've made it to the end, please do hit the like button or subscribe or leave a comment. It just helps me to know that people are watching, that they find the videos helpful, and that they might be interested in seeing more of these types of videos. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.